So essentially, from Lionel Robbins, they got the idea that the nation state in Europe had become illiberal and responsible for the pre-Leviathan state of Europe. And the Manifesto argues that if you go back to John Locke, Montesquieu, Stuart Mill, Verri, Cattaneo, those are Italian founding fathers, they all stress the instrumentality of the state. The state is an instrument that is legitimate only because it satisfies the needs of individuals and creates a legal infrastructure to protect the individual from the abuse of power. That is what had been broken. The social contract between the citizen and the state had become an authoritarian contract, an illiberal contract. And this was historically, with the exception of the UK, they were seen as being the failure of the state in Europe. So what do we do next? Now, we look at Europe. Note that in the first step, they didn't see America immediately. They saw it in 1943. But they looked at Europe as a continent that could endogenously produce something better than the nation state. Interestingly, Luigi Einaudi, in his little articles published in 1920, had these words that Europe will become a single place through the sword of Satan. Satan, the devil. I got very cheap at 1920. Lionel Robbins in 1940, and it's here, said the European Union will appear, yes, but as a result of Caesarian conquest. You know, Caesar, the Roman legendary soldier that then became emperor and conquered most of Europe. Very, very scaringly, Joseph Goebbels, the head of propaganda for Hitler, in 1942 wrote in a journal called 87, sorry, called what else? That's right, of course. I'm translating because I have the quote here, not in English. Said our continent is full of tradition, is very rich. Europe has an intense creativity, but now, from the historical experience, we see that we need an association in Europe of a group of nations where the common interest will be represented by a single voice, and these can only exist under the hegemony of one power that is stronger than the others. Now, here you understand why freedom, liberties, individuals are very important in the Manifesto. That's the other way of uniting Europe, and is not the Platonic republic of the intellectuals. Because you see in the Manifesto so many references to the working class, to citizens. There are beautiful references to free migrations. There are references to European citizenship. So something that people feel is their right, not a movement of intellectuals, but a movement of the working class. Now, a few words now to finish off, and then we still have time for all the comments. And the last scene, we take the boat in 1943 when Italy was gradually liberated, and takes these guys back to the mainland. Spinelli, in particular, tried to find people who could, even in Ventotene on the island, support the Manifesto. He found less than 10, and so it was confirmed that he was a loser from what he could see. But he didn't give up. He went back to Rome, and after more than 10 years in jail and confinement, he couldn't really walk through the city anymore. He was not used to streets, traffic, anymore. But then, thanks to Ursula Hirschman and others, he managed to present the Manifesto in 1944 at the meeting of the European Federalists in Geneva. And they quickly established the European federal movement. But yet, the reality of Europe seemed far away when he moves on the boat and goes back. They think of a European Union looked really, really far. And here, the last thing I want to say is that, however, let's watch keep an eye on the tricks and surprises that history creates. This document, produced by the losers of history, was somewhat then vindicated by the fact that very few years later, in 1951 through 1954, Katia may mention that later, there was a big movement in Europe to create a European defense community, right? Generated by the French to get German armies within a defense community. And the Dutch foreign minister of the time, Johan Willem Beyen, took the argument one step further. In 1952, suggested a parallel drive to economic unity. So defense unity, economic unity, and then some French political actors suggested that the EDC, the European Defense Community, should become a European political community, extended to embrace a customs union and a common market. And this was more or less 10 years only after the Manifesto was drafted. That was the road that was not taken. The European Defense Community was defeated in a landmark vote in the French Assembly on a procedural aspect. But anyway, when that evaporated, the Europe of the technocrats, of Jean Monnet, of the steel and coal community took off, as you know, in 1952, then in 1957, with the Rome Treaty, we created what we call the European community. But what I want to say is that, before I leave you to speak, is that history can go very fast. We've seen it, to go back to this spring in the Mediterranean, or the episodes of the fall of the Berlin Wall in 92, 89, and that period. We can, we should perhaps use some of our nocturnal language when we think about the future of Europe over the next 10 years. I stop here, and I guess Katia will tell me whether you want to think about the manifesto. You don't need to ask a question immediately. If you have a copy, you may want to go back and read something. If you have questions,